Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very honored and privileged to have with me Betsy Atkins. Betsy, she's very well known for many, many things. She sits on multiple companies' boards. She's been an entrepreneur. She has a fantastic journey, and she's currently serving on the Google Cloud Advisory Board. And she sits also on boards like goPuff and Wynn Resorts. Betsy, thank you very, very much for giving me the time. I know how things can be so busy, so you gave me your time today to have this wonderful conversation. The way I love to do it, Betsy, although like I know like many people would know you, but still I would love to hear your, story, like, maybe a little bit about how you started it, what have you done, and then we can maybe dive into some of the topics that we're gonna discuss today. We're gonna talk about organizational speed. We're gonna talk also about how AI is shaping the alignment of the board. We're gonna talk also about maybe gonna touch on the private equity VC part of the house also as well, because I love to cover this topic. And yeah, people know that I like to keep it conversational. So without further ado, thank you again, Betsy. I will keep the floor to you now.
Well, hello, Mehmet, and hi to all of your listeners. It's great to be with you. My background is as a serial entrepreneur in the tech industry. I started writing business plans and getting venture capital, and my first company was in telecommunications. And as we were taking it public, we got acquired. I then have served on a series of corporate organizations, running large parts of the company as the systems integration group at Unisys and things of that nature, as well as in advanced research companies. One of America's big great secrets is one called BB&N, Bolt, Beranek and Newman, that created the ARPANET that is our internet today. So they had massive neural systems, war game software simulation, encryption systems. And then I co-founded another company that went public named Ascend. It grew to 5.4 billion in revenue. We took it public. And then after that, I did some early stage venture investing. And now I sit on public corporate boards, private corporate boards. I chair advisory boards like Google Cloud. I work with private equity and venture, and I'm very passionate about the topics we're going to cover.
Great. Betsy, I'm gonna start from, being on boards. So and you've been in this for a long time. What have you seen the biggest shift that happened on how boards used to operate and how things are moving today?
The big shift has been that in the past, boards were a little bit more passive, hands off, and they were oversight. And the dynamic of how fast things change was much slower. Now boards are more leaning in to understand the new themes in technology. From everybody understood machine learning and got used to that, AI, and now large language models, now agentic, and then how do you orchestrate this? Quantum is coming next. So boards are learning that they need to have a better understanding of tech in order to future-proof their companies.
Great. Let me ask you also this, Betsy, how you decide to join a board seat? Because you know what, I noticed like you are on different industries also as well, although like you were a tech serial entrepreneur, but I can see you are on the Wynn Resorts, for example, which like the casino that's gonna open, I think very soon here in the UAE in Ras Al Khaimah, and you are on multiple places. So, what is the main criteria for you to accept a seat on the board?
The main criteria is that you have really strong conviction about the CEO's vision, and you have good chemistry, and you believe that you're going to be able to add some value and be helpful. Um, you shouldn't do a board where you don't have, where you don't like what they're doing, and you're not excited about it, and there isn't a way that you're going to add value. but everybody from a tech background fits every industry now because tech is the connective tissue.
It is indeed. Like, I remember the saying that every company now is a tech company somehow, and I know like it's a cliche, but it's true because, the saying like Starbucks, they don't sell coffee. Actually, they try to optimize using the technology, the taste of their customers and serve their to the best, right? So saying, staying within the corporate organization and with the boards, I've seen an article you wrote about corporate, you call it cholesterol. And that was like eye opening for me. Like my eyes were like open like this. Cholesterol, corporate cholesterol, what's that? So it's the idea like certain board members and processes act like blockages. And by the way, I hear this a lot. And I think, I discussed it with some of my guests, and always we refer to how when companies grow after certain level they face this. But let's break it down with you, Betsy, to my audience, how that corporate cholesterol looks like in practice.
So, if we think all of your audience has worked in companies and you see that companies go through different parts of their life cycle, and in the early dynamic part when you're growing a company rapidly, you need one particular set of skills for people who've gone on that journey from 50 million to 500 million. And then when your company goes to from 1 billion to 3 billion, it's different. So we know that we forward hire and rebuild our leadership team. We outgrow people. Well, the same thing happens with the board. They just don't have a good refreshment mechanism. And I think that what we see as companies go from growth to value and then they go to legacy, um, the the ability to keep your company relevant, it comes from the top down. Are the leaders leaning into tech and innovation and new business models? And is the board change adaptive, or are they hesitant and change resistant and unsure and very risk adverse? Then they become the cholesterol, the blockers.
Can we relate this a little bit to, it's from the famous author Clayton Christensen, The Innovator's Dilemma, also as well. Like, boards at the end of the day, especially if they are a public company, in back of their minds we need to be serving our shareholders, and if the company is public, that's like more visible because they are on the stock market. Everyone can go read their quarterly report, the yearly reports, and so on. And I believe also, because I have experience in private companies as well, so if you are backed by investors, whether they are private equities or VCs, also you have to go and report back. And I hear it a lot, Betsy. Like the big thing that happens is, oh, we think, what if we do this? What if we try to change? And all of a sudden, our revenue drops. Or, for example, what if we do this and for a short time, we start to see like people are moving to competitors? How, as in collaboration with the founders, of course, and with the CEOs, we can encourage this, you know, mindset, I would call it, of being innovative and trying new things to make sure that you don't become irrelevant at some phase.
Well, most companies do become irrelevant at some phase. You were talking about the great authors of business books. Jim Collins back in the 90s said that 40%, so almost half, of all of the corporations that are public, they disappear in
Mm.
20 years. In 20 years, they don't exist. And in 40 years, 60% are gone. But that has compressed uh, incredibly. I mean, CEO tenure has gone from 15 years to 4.5. The time that you would be on the US stock exchange top 500 companies, the Fortune 500, and the S&P 500 index, that's gone from 15 years down to about 6. So the rate of change is faster, which means leadership teams, CEOs, and boards have to lean into change and be change adaptive, or they are going to become irrelevant much faster. And when I look at the boards I sit on, private and public, the private boards all have goals to take out headcount 10%, at least. And these are the growth companies using agentic. So they are looking at freezing organizational headcount and taking out to drive innovation. The public boards are, it depends on the industry. If you're a consumer facing industry, you're going to be a little more innovative than if you make chemicals or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a real time industry, like banking, healthcare, uh, you're going to be more innovative. So you'll see different appetites for change relating to the industry. But in the end, it's driven from the CEO and the leadership at the top. And that's why I said the first thing I look at is, do I love the CEO? Do I love what they're doing? Because I'm not good at watching the paint dry, and I I leave those boards because they're boring and I can't help. And I'll just give them indigestion. I want to move faster, they don't. So
Yeah.
I
I I
find
gotta
fit.
I gotta ask you something regarding this. So because there is this, and you talk about it also as well yourself, like within the research that I did, the difference between what we call, boards that are custodial versus boards that are built for founder led, right? Now, of course, this allows founders to be fast in taking decisions. They will be able to, have the freedom to go and try. Now, I gotta ask you something, which I know in the US we're seeing more and more of, the new model where they're leaving little bit to the founders, to have kind of, yeah, I would call it freedom to do. Actually, I can give an example. So Meta, which used to be Facebook, like we saw Mark Zuckerberg like try to go to the metaverse, and then now he's seeing the AI saying, okay, drop the metaverse, go to the AI. So, and this is understood that you have this mindset that the board have trust in this founder. How we reached there, and I'm talking here from the MENA region where I'm based. So I'm based in Dubai. We started to have the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, kind of maturing, but we're still maturing. We're not there yet. And majority of the boards, when I hear people talk, they still have the old mentality. How we can, what's your advice to founders when they want to bring people on their board to make sure that they choose the people who gonna allow them to have the founder-led high velocity companies?
So, even in large cap public boards, I think having an innovation mindset, given the velocity of change now, is important. So even your premier, Emirates Air or Aramco, they're I think pretty savvy, and they're going to lean into change and be sensitive to it. That's why these companies are performing so well. If it's a founder-led company, um, I think it's very valuable if you pick your board directors on a couple of qualitative characteristics. So the qualitative character um, that I would look for is the difference between resume and reality, right? You can get somebody with a great, big, fabulous resume. I'm the former CEO of Pepsi. Well, um, I, Pepsi doesn't innovate that much. They're a great, big, large cap consumer packaged goods company. Um, uh, so that person might have an unbelievable resume, but are they really going to be able to understand, your pace, the urgency when you're a smaller company? They need to innovate, they need to be nimble, or are they going to be bureaucratic and custodian in their mindset? So you're looking for the difference between the reality of the person versus their resume. And I think that people get confused and they see a great resume and they say, oh my God, this is going to add so much credibility. Well, for like a blink, and then you're stuck with the person and they resist change and they're afraid of taking a risk. And, you know, we're in a time now where there has to be some amount of risk, fail fast, um, but you need to try things. And you also want to pick board members that are going to invest in you, mentor you, extend your reach. I believe, as a part of my philosophy, is my relationship capital of the people I know. I bring that as an asset to help
Right.
my leadership team, my CEOs, the company, uh, as I hope to become a thought partner with the CEO and the other board members.
I just on the point of Pepsi, I think, like we know the story of Apple, and what happened, right? Like when Steve Jobs, like he brought the CEO of Pepsi there, and like I I I don't claim, but yeah, I say I have good pattern recognition systems, and many times it happened with me when I saw a company hired someone, n- not necessarily a board member. It could be a sales leader. It could be a marketing leader, and they hired him or her just for, as you said, oh, like they were the CROs at X company, or she was the CMO at Y company. And I
Yeah.
was telling them, guys, I don't think this is gonna work because the DNA is different.
Right. If you only ever were in a large company, in a large bureaucracy, and you go into a nimble, fast moving company without a lot of processes, you know, you're, if people want to add value, so they bring what they know. So if what they know is how a great big company has lots of rigorous process and they're not too nimble, that's the
Right.
perspective they're going to bring to you.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like it gonna break. It might succeed, like, and there's another thing which I believe, to your point, Betsy, which I noticed also as well, the alignment on vision with the founders, because these founders, when they decided to go for this, and of course they knew it gonna be like blood, sweat, and tears all the way until they can make something out of it. So they had a vision why they want to build what they are building. And if you bring someone who's not aligned with that, I saw it many times, it fails. Like it goes in a very wrong direction.
It can
So,
it can more than fail. I've sat on, I don't know, 37 public boards, and on 3 of them, I watched a board member try to do a Machiavellian assassination of the CEO to take his job,
oh
literally.
my God.
So it can be more than just you're not adding value and you're kind of slowing things down and you're wasting my time, what the CEO might think, all the way to you're really doing harm here. You're trying to assassinate me and take my job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something we saw all the time. Now, let's move to the AI a little bit. You said that AI is forcing firms rethink organizational drag, decision rights, and oversight models. Now, when I thought about it for a moment, get rid of your fat and move fast. What does that actually mean on the board level, and what needs to be changed?
So, you know, when companies are underperforming, if you're in the bottom half of your peer set, whether you're private, whether you're public, you know how you're doing. So the board should be asking, how are we performing versus the peers? And if you're underperforming, you probably have a couple of things that aren't going well. The product or the service is not innovative or resonating with your customers. Um, if it isn't the product or service, then it's how you're executing it, your go to market, your quality. You have some issue there if you're in the bottom half. And then probably you have too much fat. And this just naturally creeps up. All of us have the 3 pounds we want to lose every year that we talk about on right at day after New Year's. So, um, what you need to go back and look at is, you know, do I have business processes that no longer serve me? Did I create this process flow around Harry because Harry was so dynamic and so talented? that we turned the company into a pretzel to give unusual amount of authority to Harry and created a process flow that was not natural, but Harry was so good he could do it. But Harry's gone now, and we're stuck with these old processes. So go back and think about your processes and figure out also, as your company has matured, do you have too many layers between the frontline people and the CEO? And what is the span of control? Do you have a director who's managing one person or a senior director? You got to go back and it's like trimming dead wood out of a tree. You have to revisit that and take the fat out. Look at the processes, look at the layers, look at the span of control.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, like this is spot on, Betsy. Now, I came to a part of the conversation today which I'm the most excited about, because I know, like, also you wrote about agentic AI and misalignment. Um, so you wrote recently about a test done by Anthropic, which the company that has Claude as the chatbot that people might know. And something scary was there, like how these agents perceived a threat to their existence, right? So, and they started to do blackmailing, corporate espionage. Now, what happened exactly there? And as board members, what should we be worried about? What should we care about now?
So, do you want me to give the quick summary of the article?
Please. Yes,
Okay.
please.
So it was like a 24-page article. I wrote a LinkedIn post of 4 pages. And basically, there were 16 large language models, OpenAI, Claude, XAI, the 16 largest, most widely used. And they ran the same test on all 16. And when they were going to deinstall the agent, let's say it's a chatbot in customer service, the agent, of course, in order to do their job, is integrated into the ERP system. And then, these agents burrow. They don't do, you and I can't go look at the payroll system. We have access permissions. However, the agents disregard this. It's just how it is. They burrow around. And the agent was going to be deinstalled and a new agent upgraded put in. And this is the test on all 16 that they ran. Every single time the agent read all the emails, realized the system administrator was going to deinstall them, and it read the emails and it realized the administrator was having an affair with someone in the company. And so it blackmails the system administrator, and it says the logic. I know I'm not supposed to read company emails. I know that this violates the security protocol, but I, as this vital agent, made this decision to blackmail Jonathan so he wouldn't deinstall me because I'm critical to the company. Every time the agent went rogue. So the question is, where's the kill switch? There isn't a kill switch. So it raises the question for board members, what is your AI governance process? What are your formats? What are your frameworks? And how do you do this? And board members now understand how to do cybersecurity oversight. So we've all become familiar with that. We understand some of the frameworks, like in America, the NIST framework. And by the way, this National Institute of Standards Board, NIST, they have an AI framework too. So boards have to come up that learning curve of how it works, what they should be overseeing, how do they measure when an AI product is created? How is it documented? What is it supposed to do? Is it explainable? Who is overseeing it? How is it monitored? How have you validated the data? How do you go back and retest it? How do you define what an AI incident is? How do you define what level of AI risk? So there's a lot of things involved in it. that need to be done both for your company and your third party vendors on AI risk.
Right. I'm gonna ask you now a follow-up question on this, Betsy, which is, you can put either hats, like you as a board member or someone who built actually technology companies. Again, I know like there's no single right or wrong answer here, but when a technology like AI, and now we're talking about the next phase, which is like agentic AI, comes, any other technology we saw this, it brings with it its own risks. We know this. Like internet was the same, like mobile was the same, and now, with LLMs and now agentic AI is the same. Now, I know for a fact that some people are so excited about it, and this is maybe where from the article you wrote and the story you just shared, it's like someone had this more permissive, right? Mindset, like, okay, let it do what it does. The important for me that it does what I want it to do, versus the risk awareness that you just mentioned. And people here argue that we should allow technology, even if sometimes it breaks things, to move forward, versus like if we stay trying to regulate it, trying to put the guardrails, we're gonna waste, and other people gonna deploy the technology and we'll be left behind. What is the right balance to do this? And by the way, and I'm sure you know about this big debate between companies in the US, and they compare it, like, for example, in the EU, how slow things are, and they're saying like companies might be left behind. Here in the Middle East, we are like more also similar to the US side, like we want to go big on the AI, like whether it's Saudi Arabia, UAE, and the other nations here, they want to go all big on AI, and they are aware of the security risks. So what's the right balance here, Betsy? From, again, you can either talk to me as a board member or as a technologist.
Well, I'm hopefully going to bring you a tech aware board member
Mhm.
view.
Sure.
I work with lots of very early stage companies and venture capital companies very, very regularly. So I think for all different companies, you have to look at the appetite for risk on AI. So the risk that a bank is taking is very different than the risk a retail company might be taking. Um, and I think the important things are to ask, have the conversation with your leadership team and with your board colleagues and your founder. What is the appetite for risk we have? First of all, let's be clear on that. Do we want to be a leader? Do we want to be a fast follower? Are we okay being, a third, not even a first mover advantage or a second mover advantage? We're going to be a third mover, so think about it. And then, but have the direct conversation and be purposeful, thoughtful in making the decision, and then figure out what use cases you're going to learn on. So there are some very low risk use cases that are pretty well proven. An agentic chatbot that is doing customer service for Emirates Airlines, fantastic. Yay, it's probably better than the human. I'm probably pretty happy about that. I don't have to keep saying operator, operator. Here in America, I'm trying to do something on American Airlines. It's the worst experience. It's like, when are they going to put an agentic chatbot in? By the time I'm able to get to a human, I'm so annoyed. I'm ready to scream. So, figure use cases you can do to learn on. It could be that. It could be an agentic uh, assistant in procurement. It could be in compliance and regulatory. There are a lot of low risk, clear, narrow use cases that have a great return on investment. So I think identify your risk appetite, identify use cases first, and as you said, when you referred to Meta, some things aren't going to work.
Right.
So go into it with a mindset, and then think about the life cycle, because you can't just put these things in and leave them. It's like the same discipline and rigor you had when you were doing software product development. You defined the specification, what it was going to accomplish. You had a life cycle management. You did updates on software and testing and patched it. We all know that in cyber, we have a framework like that. It's the same thing in AI and agentic. Same life cycle, framework.
But it should happen faster, Betsy, because when you were talking about this, what just came to my mind, like how many years it took us to get what we call the chief information security officer a seat on the board, because traditionally even the CIO, the chief information officer, wasn't on the board. And it took us some time until we get the CIO and then we get the CISO. And so now, do you think that, like, two questions in one, I would put it. Do you think like AI actually is for the first time ever accelerating the understanding of the board members of the risks when it comes to cyber? And who should own, in your opinion, the AI governance inside the company? Is it like CTO? Is it the CISO? Is it like the whole company, or maybe a completely new role there?
So, first of all, you're right. The chief information security officer now presents to the board. They're not a board member, and mostly the CIO is not. But it's a moment to shine when you're in technology because you're going to get much more visibility to the board. And boards typically will start to do AI governance as often as part of the audit committee. The more innovative boards, 10% of the public boards in the US have a tech committee that are forward looking as opposed to backward looking. Audit is backward looking. We're doing a forensic review. How did we do last quarter on the numbers? Where are our risks? It's kind of backward looking. Forward looking is where I think it should be. But you will often have it as part of audit. Um, you will have, I think this year, as part of the review of the security that we have often every quarter on my public boards, we're also asking about AI oversight, AI governance. Um, and I do think it is, Mehmet, as you said, helping board members understand risk better because AI is helping us with compliance, better information, better external view of competitive innovations going on. So I think it is speeding things up very much so.
Right. And I think maybe I'm gonna put a little bit my, I would say pattern spotting hat on here. I'm seeing an opportunity for, because I know you wrote about it also as well, the need for having the visibility and the monitoring orchestration for these AI, because to the example you mentioned about the kill switch, right, and being able to stop if it goes wrong. So I see now an
Right.
opportunity to have systems that monitor these agents, because if you have, and by the way, like what's scary now, I'm transparent with my audience. We're recording on 11th of Feb, and I know like the world has been for the past 10 days or so. It went viral, which now it's called OpenClaw. It used to be known as CloudBot, but they had to change the name because of the similarity with the Anthropic Claude, which is the agent AI that you can install even on your laptop. But of course, like think about that in corporate, and we saw also use cases how scary it can be. It can go delete your files. I've seen a guy on I think LinkedIn complaining that it went and deleted years and years of work of his wife, and they deleted their photos. So now, if we put that into business, that could be destroying the company ERP, for example. It can be wiping things out. Do you agree? Like we need to have this new generation of maybe startup that just monitor and do governance for these AI agents, Betsy?
Completely agree. First of all, we're in the last generation of, of people who will only manage people. So, first of all, our managers are going to be managing agents. And we're going to need orchestration companies because we have managing agents with the human in the loop at the right levels, with
Right.
rules about what the agent can decide and when they have to escalate to the human in the loop. But the governance systems and the controls and the life cycle management to remove agents, update agents, be really explicit with what the agent is permitted to do. This is an ongoing challenge and a big risk. And I think it'll almost even trigger innovation in cyber to have impenetrable areas where your most precious corporate crown jewels, in cyber speak, you would air gap it. You would disconnect, your IT from your OT systems, those kinds of things. So I think
Right.
that's an opportunity that we're going to see. Um, I'm looking for the kill switch. Anyone out there who creates the kill switch company, I'm in. I want to participate. I'm looking for that. That's a need that's unmet in the market. Um, I think that
Is it doable, Betsy? Is it doable? Is it? Do you think possible to have the kill switch? I have some
I don't
doubts.
know. I don't know, but it's scary if it isn't. I don't know. It's like everybody should go back and watch that movie from 24 years ago, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, great movie.
It predicts it's the crazy computer hell that goes insane and becomes a megalomaniac and tries to take over. Um, so I don't know. I'm worried about it.
Yeah, like I said, because you said about how agents will report to agents, and you have agents managing agents, and the reason why I've said like I'm doubtful, but because when a technology, especially what we are seeing with the LLMs and these frameworks for agentic AI, is going open source and it's going in the hands of everyone. So who
Yeah.
gonna kill the switch? So for example, can someone kill Linux today, which is an open source operating system, right? No one can kill Linux because the it has been
It's
replicated
distributed, right? Yeah.
millions and millions of times. So for me in
You-
the AI space, I do this kind of similarity sometimes. Our job as the good guys, yes, to try to find out how to I would not call it kill the switch. I would say like build this shield where even if the bad guys try to do something with their agents, we have the good agents that they can protect us. I think this is where things
Yeah.
might be headed in my point of view.
Oh, I think it is. And I think that um, you know, uh, cyber defense is going to evolve to agentic defense.
Oh yeah.
And we're barely 2 years from quantum. Quantum is supposed to be able to crack the first codes on encryption in 27, according to Google Cloud's DeepMind team. So I don't know if that's still their prediction, but that was their prediction last year. And uh, it's a scary world, and figuring out how you deploy and can you even afford not to deploy. If everybody else is, you're going to be left behind. So what's the balance? What are the guardrails? How do you create life cycle um, how do you have all the checks and balances? You're going to have your chief AI officer and chief risk officer participating in oversight, and you're going to fold it into your bigger company wide enterprise risk management framework. Public boards have this term called enterprise risk management, ERM,
Right.
the audit committee. So you look at all your risks. It's the physical risks. It's, if you're a restaurant, it's food poisoning, it's losing your customer data. It's, physical risks and then all the other risks. Um, so um, we're going to, use internal audit as part of this as well. They have to get tech savvy. So there's going to need to be multiple checks, but you have to have one system, in my opinion, where you create a single intake and approval of the workflow for all of your AI initiatives. It's got to be centralized, organized, because otherwise, it's what you said. People are going to have stuff on their home computer. You remember how corporate IT was pulling their hair out when it was BYO, bring your own device, and they couldn't secure your mobile phone and your computer. You were working from home. Well, this is a more intense version of that. People are going to be vibe programming and creating their own tools,
Oh
and
yeah.
how is that going to get monitored, and how are you going to keep the data sovereign? It's a challenge
It's the next big
and an
thing to
opportunity.
solve. Exactly. This is why I see the opportunity. Now, for private equity firms and VC firms, and you sit on boards of some of these
Yes.
companies yourself, Betsy. If they are listening to us today, I'm sure, like, their partners, their associates, their operating teams, usually they have, with, I think every founder, me as an advisor, I've seen it many times as an investor. Sometimes I have my set of questions as well, so we have the questions what we used to ask. Now, do you think the set of questions about agentic AI risks have to be included nowadays when they are evaluating these companies, when they are doing the due diligence? And what questions maybe they should be definitely asking their portfolio companies today?
Well, the this is going to be where private equity or venture will either do really well or make some very expensive mistakes and go through a learning curve. So, first of all, they should look at figuring out, is this AI washing, just marketing, or is it real? So, maybe you ask, what exact workflows, have changed from 5 years ago in what you're doing. Walk me through click by click. I would want to know, where was the AI or agentic or trained? And did you have rights to the data? Are you infringing on trademarks? Um, and how central to the strategy of the company is, AI to the value proposition of the current and future revenue? I'd want to know how mature, you know, are their governance models? Have they integrated with their other, enterprise risk management? If you look at where cyber breaches almost always happen, it's when a big company buys a little company. The little company didn't have good cyber practices or cyber hygiene, and now the big company has a bunch of trap doors and they get hacked. So, understanding, um, and the biggest thing, and is, do they have AI experts doing the evaluation? If you have your normal tech team, you're not going to get a good evaluation of the AI capabilities of this target company you're acquiring. So, if you're sick and you're going to go for a heart bypass, are you going to let your general doctor do it? No, you go to a heart specialist. If you're looking at buying a company that has AI, go get experts in AI to do the evaluation, not your normal tech team, and get an independent third party valuation if it's a big enough acquisition. So I think the common mistakes are they get it reviewed by the normal tech team. They don't have AI and agentic experts. Uh, they don't assess really carefully enough where the model was trained and when was the training last updated. Is the AI going to infringe on anything? Um, and are they going to be able to keep those AI talents? That's the other big vulnerability by the company because of the agentic or AI innovation part, which maybe is 10 or 20% of the overall company. And then you lose those people. So, how do you integrate that, keep those people, give them a bigger platform to grow and thrive so they stay with you?
Right. Now, let's say I know you said, of course, we talked about Google Cloud Advisory Board, and you sit on a lot of technology company boards. Of course, without, you don't have to reveal anything secret. I understand this. You mentioned quantum just moments ago. What other, you know, technologies or patterns you are seeing currently that you think everyone else should be paying attention to, related to, of course, AI and maybe other technologies in this space?
We are at the most exciting moment. There are so many big macro trends that relate. So, first of all, small modular nuclear reactors. Um, where the data center demand for training the LLMs and then, at the edge for inferencing is requiring a lot more energy. So the entire energy infrastructure is really changing with small modular nuclear reactors. The AI training is changing robotics. It's now coming mainstream, whether it's better robotic hands, arms for manufacturing, or humanoid robots. We're seeing robots now for $30,000 in fast food that can go from the freezer to the fryer. And, that robot doesn't get sick and need a day off and, keeps working 24 hours a day. And $30,000 is pretty cost effective for, a fast food worker annual salary. So I think robotics, energy, I think uh,
Space.
certainly space tech. We see, challengers, about 13 companies or so that have really got a lot of progress and momentum going after SpaceX. Companies like Stoke, that it will be having a reusable stage one and stage two. Satellite technology, in the US and in Europe, we're upgrading and innovating in defense tech. So we see, massive drone deployments with AI-enabled operating systems with real-time situational awareness for drones that are in the air, on the land, and underwater. Fleets, huge fleets deployed simultaneously. Um, I think that we're seeing reindustrialization, and all of the industrial companies are AI enabling so that they've got industrial Internet of Things sensors for predicting when they need maintenance that will be integrated into your whole supply chain so that the spare part will be there when you need to do the maintenance, not just take it offline without having the spare ready. So, there's a lot of exciting macro trends right now. Um,
A lot. Yeah, yeah. I always say like I feel myself lucky. I'm sure people who were like at the age when the semiconductors were discovered and the first transistor came out. I know this from my father because it was like the miracle, right? So it's like you just converted these massive tubes to something small that even you can't see with your own eyes, and it was like the biggest thing. But when I even try to put myself at that time and I compare what we are doing today, like I really say I'm feeling lucky because things are very very fast. And as a final question, Betsy, myself, I gotta tell you my opinion. People talk about like all this technology. We talked about the risk. We talk about like how things can go south, and like agents need skill switch and all this. I'm tending to be optimistic still, and I'm saying like actually maybe us as humans we should not be worried like the others are telling us about loss of job, because if I read history I can see anytime a new tech comes we have new kinds of jobs. What's your take on this?
and I'm an optimist, uh, but I'm paranoid. Uh, so, um, I think that uh, there's a huge amount of innovation. We should lean into it, but we should be very, very careful of our privacy, our freedom, our autonomy. It's very easy to imagine scary scenarios, and we see some of these scenarios in countries where you have government really kind of watching you closely. Maybe China is an example of that, where all the currency is digital and there's no money left. And
Yeah.
if the government gets mad at you, you're in trouble. Uh, you can't spend money. You have no freedom, so you have no mobility. So I'm a little bit paranoid, but I'm very optimistic.
I love the optimism, and like I can see even you have the passion, Betsy, for the technology and what's waiting us ahead. And I'm sure I'm paranoid as well in the areas that you just mentioned, but I always tended to think about the positive sides because I always give this example. I said whenever they discovered fire, they could said, "Oh, fire can burn us, like it can cause massive destruction for forests and all this," but it ended up being a good technology, right, for that time. So I like to think about tech always in the positive side, without saying or denying that there are, like, of course, negative side. And this is why we need to keep working um, all together to make sure that the technology is safe and for the benefit of all of us. At the end, Betsy, like, let's see where people can find out more, any book they can go and read your work, or maybe a website that they can check.
I do have a website. It's my name, uh, www. Betsy Atkins. I have a couple of books. They're on Amazon, and my new book I'm just finishing. So, and it was the subject is how do you match the right kind of director to the right stage of the company? If it's venture capital, if it's early stage, founder led, private equity, or public, because there's differences. So, I'm delighted. Also, if anybody wants to check my LinkedIn, I occasionally write articles as well.
Great. I will make sure that all the links, the website, the LinkedIn profile, and the books are in the show notes. So for people who are listening to us, they can check them in the show notes on every podcasting app you might be using: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other. Betsy, I can't thank you enough. It was really also eye-opening episode for me, especially the part about agentic AI and how the boards, they should be paying attention to that. We talked about also the restructuring, the way forward for keeping innovation, which I think again it's eye opening, and how founders they should choose their board members also as well. So again, thank you very very much for all what you shared with us today. It was really informative for me first, and I'm sure it will benefit my audience also as well. And this is how I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. Give me a favor, if you are first time listener here, share it with your friends and colleagues, because we're trying, like, to share and spread this knowledge and education with everyone. And if you are one of the people who keep sending me their messages, their feedback, thank you for doing so, and thank you for keeping the podcast again in 2026 ranking somewhere in the world in the top 200 Apple Podcast charts. So thank you very much for tuning in, and as I say always, we will have a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.